Are you someone who finds himself in a caretaking role? Whether you are caretaking for a family or you're caretaking for others as a healer, we all have needs that need to be addressed in order to be able to show up in the best way possible for those we are caring for. Join me this week as I sit down with the incredible Dr. Lisa Parsons as we talk about how important it is to fill your own cup and how small a gesture could be made in order to do that every single day so that you can show up in the best and brightest way possible.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. I am overjoyed to welcome the amazing Dr. Lisa Parsons back to the show. Welcome, Dr. Lisa.
Happy to be back.
If you were listening to the show earlier this season, I had an amazing conversation with Dr. Lisa about true holistic women's care. And in the course of that conversation, we realized, oh my gosh, there's so many topics that we could talk about. So one of the things that we ended up talking about in the green room after we got off of that amazing recording was about looking at things through the lens of the healer and who heals the healer. How do we heal the healer?
Yeah.
Because so many of us who find ourselves in caretaking roles, whether you're doing it professionally and you're caring for others as a practitioner, or you're doing it in your home as a caretaker, there are so many ways that life demands more than the resources we have on board. And we start seeing it in the way that we show up in our caretaking role. And so we thought that this would be an awesome conversation to have today. So as a healer, Dr. Lisa, let's talk a little bit about your experience with that healing role.
Oh my gosh, that is such a big question, isn't it? I think, when I started on this journey of, coming into my own true path, the hardest thing to ask myself was, what is it that I want?
Mm.
I can't tell you how long it had been before I sat with myself and said, what is it that I want to do? Because so much of my practice was just giving it all away because we care, right? We come with our hearts open, and it's very easy to get into the system, especially in the traditional system where you literally give everything away and you have nothing at the end of the day. And it started with me watching, like we talked about with the last episode, watching two of my mentors pass away from ALS for me to say, whoa, I don't want that to be me. I don't want to be on an antidepressant. I don't want to, be resentful going into work today. So what is it that I can do to change that path? And, I think medicine has come a long way in terms of bringing in more mindfulness and just the thought of caring for ourselves. Or let's even talk about how to process a bad outcome that you've had and the trauma that we've all been through caring for people. Because when you have something like that happen, you take it very personally. So I think that it's just a multiple layer answer when it comes to what do you do for yourself? Because I think it's a lot of unlearning of your current care systems that are not working. You just get to a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore.
Mm.
And, I hope that for all the providers that are out there that are, burning the candle at both ends, they're feeling stuck in their jobs, they're feeling resentful going to work, they're feeling burnt out, they've got trauma, like we need to, as healers, support each other and talk about it. Cause that's the other thing. We
Mm.
want to put on our, superwoman cape and be like, oh yeah, I can power through and do it. But that's not reality, right? Where a lot of us are hurting inside that aren't talking about it. And so I think that's where we start is just by acknowledging that we deserve to treat ourselves as good, actually better than we're treating our patients. Because if you can't show up for yourself, you are not doing anyone any service. And I'm still learning that. So,
Oh, you raised so many good points. I want to come back to the superhero cape.
mhm,
Oh man, do we
yeah.
try to completely blanket ourselves in that outfit on a regular
Mhm,
basis? And, you smile and you show up for the bedside manner and,
mhm,
you want your clients to feel seen and heard. And you might be going through a whole bunch of things on your side of things. And that takes a back seat,
mhm,
right? Which is what everybody who walks into care wants to feel like.
right,
But how long do we do that, right? Because, we live in a culture where we value staying in that spring and summer productive energy, go produce all the time.
mhm.
And because we live in that space, even as healers, even when we understand at, like that we have to have balance,
Yes.
it's still so hard to set healthy boundaries.
Yes. An energetic exchange,
Mhm.
right? You don't give it all away. You can't give it all away. And you're actually not doing your best treatments
Yeah.
when you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
learned that the hard way at
Me
first.
too. Me. That's why we're here.
Absolutely. This is why this conversation must happen because, like, I used to come home totally fried. Some of it was the fact I hadn't learned how to energetically protect myself from,
Mhm.
being a highly sensitive person and an empath. Like, I took on everybody's everything and I felt it as if I was them, and
Yes.
by the end of the day, I would come home and my husband's like, "You're dead, like, all the
Mhm.
time."
Mhm.
And I just wanted to save the world. Again, we
Yeah.
come back to that superhero cape, right? I wanted to save
Yeah.
the world. I still wanna save the world, man,
I do
but
too.
let
But we're doing it in the right way now, right? Like we're
Yes.
doing it in a way where we believe that people can heal themselves. That's the other huge part that I have concluded is like, okay, I am facilitating. And even, in the traditional model, like we should be facilitating these things, but you're not fixing the problem. The person has to take on that because that's how you empower someone, right? And the body can heal itself. We have to believe that. And that includes us.
Yes.
So, practicing what we're telling others to do. And I'm still working on it. I'm definitely not, got it all figured out. But, again, for those people out there that don't even know like what step to take next, I literally started with what do I want to have for lunch today? Or
Mhm.
I want to go get a library card and go to the library. Like asking yourself simple things to get back in tune with that inner voice of what is it that I want? And then surrounding yourself by people that help nourish you and you're not giving it all away is extremely important. Either getting a coach or talking to someone, acupuncture, energetics, like what is it that you can do to help fill your cup back up? Because my guess is for many people, it's been low for a long time.
Beautifully said. It makes me think about the mother blessing ceremony that I had for my pregnancy journey. That was something that I didn't even know I needed. Like, I knew I
Mhm.
wanted to have it, and I knew it would be beautiful, but, like, I just had no idea how deeply my soul needed to be
Mhm.
held like
Mhm.
that.
Yes.
And I see it as, there is a lot of me that I give to my clients, and that's part of the value. in the service that I provide because they don't feel like a number and they feel seen and they feel heard and they feel witnessed.
Right.
But I have always struggled, as so many of us do, with that I can do it. I need to do it myself. Like, I don't need any help, that hyper independent, like,
Yeah.
and we do it as a trauma response. We do it to
Mhm.
protect ourselves. We do it because we want to help as many people as we possibly can with the work that we're doing. And I struggle with asking for help. And this pregnancy has taught me that I have to ask, that I
Mhm.
can't do certain things that I would just pick up and do on my own. I mean, I
Mhm.
totally did it at the chiropractor the other day. There was a piece of the belly tape she had put on my stomach that landed on the floor. Here's Adrian bending over to pick it up because, like, I would just normally do that, right? And
Right.
she looks at me
Like,
and
"What
she
are you doing?"
right after my adjustment, she scowls at me and she goes, "You know that you need to rest, right?" Like, you would tell your own clients this, and it's
It's
so
so
true.
interesting. Yes.
Mhm. Yep,
Um,
walking my talk. It's something that I am conscious of every single
mhm.
day, and I have to take a step back and go, "So what would I tell my clients in this situation?"
And that's huge. Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, and I loved your point about what am I gonna have for lunch today?
Mhm.
I was
Because
notorious for working through lunch.
or you ate it and didn't taste it at
Yeah,
all, right?
exactly.
And you
Yes.
weren't feeding yourself with healthy choices that were good for us because it was like, "Okay, I waited too long and now I'm gonna eat the junk on the counter," right? I didn't even taste it. Yeah, I've been there.
I was like, "Ooh, I feel seen right now." But it's true, and it doesn't have to be big things.
No.
Little things like making sure that you're eating 3 meals,
Mhm.
making sure that you're taking breaks when you have them scheduled in, because that's the other thing. My lunch break, I extended it to be almost 2 hours because I know I have a hard time transitioning out. So I had
Yeah.
to provide myself that 30-minute buffer to, like, deal with emails and
So
phone
smart.
messages and that kind of stuff. But then
Mhm.
I could really, like, get up and step away from my desk and eat in a thoughtful way and go for a walk.
Ah, so good.
And, that I can't believe how much just those little things alone changed
Right.
how I felt.
Mhm. Because you're taking it just a little bit back to remind yourself, like, that you matter.
Mhm. Healers need healers too.
Yes.
We need a
Yes.
care team as much as we need a village.
It's so true. It's so true. And I do, I go for acupuncture. I've got my intuitive coach. I am being more mindful with my choices now. And you're right, those things make a big difference because you do need that encouragement and that reminder of like, you don't have to pick that up by yourself. No, okay. Trying hard. Yeah.
Oh, they do. Oh, they do, especially when you're just like it becomes such a default response to bend and pick up the thing, to
Mhm.
just pick up whatever it is that needs to happen and run with it. It's a rewiring. It's like you said, an unlearning.
Huge unlearning.
And we're unlearning the societal expectations that so many of us had deeply hardwired into our bodies. And,
Mhm.
like, I look at it too, like, it's part of my cultural identity. Like,
Yes.
I have a Franco-American background, and you were defined by working hard. Like, it was part of your self-worth,
Yes.
man.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. In the medical field is also like, yes, productivity is equal to worth. What do you
Exa
mean you want a lunch break? What do you mean,
exactly.
you need that time off?
And the thing is we're not robots.
No.
We're not, and the more that we treat our bodies, mind, body, and soul, the more we
Mhm.
treat our bodies like little robots, the sicker we get. The harder it is for us to show up. The quality of the work that we so desperately want to provide for care for our and I keep using the word clients, but this whole conversation can be laid over being a caretaker at home too.
Oh, yes.
because, stay-at-home moms and single parents, they are unsung heroes. Like, they put so
Mm,
much of their vital energy into the care of others or those who are caring for a family and maybe a sick extended family member. For example, like, it's a lot on your physical body as well as your energetic body, and
mhm,
both need to be held.
mhm. And then the guilt. Let's talk about the guilt that comes up.
Oh,
I mean,
guilt and shame. Yes,
guilt
let's
and
dive
shame.
in.
I mean, we are so good at guilting ourselves when we do take that time, or we are, here's the other thing, comparing ourselves to what is on either social media or the neighbor next door that, we are so good at beating ourselves up. And it's very sad. It makes me very sad, because it's just unnecessary. And like you said, it's a lot of unprogramming to be like, wait, I'm actually a better person, a better provider
Mm.
when I'm doing these things, and my worth is not associated with productivity.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's quality,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
We want every single interaction that we have to be of the best quality, whether it's the first appointment of the day or the end of the day,
Yeah.
and it's hard.
And you know what's so interesting? What I've noticed is that the more that I do pay attention to myself and show up authentic, taking care of myself, practicing in my own true path, the people find you. Like, the productivity is going to increase just by what you are bringing as a human.
Mhm.
So everything that's taught to us about marketing, ideal client, all that stuff, it's like, really, truly, when you are in alignment, when you are happy with how you are showing up, the rest falls into place like easily.
Oh,
And
100%.
yeah, that's been a lot for me because just as a small business owner, so much went into the beginning of, getting your name out there, marketing, all this stuff. And yes, that it does take some of that, but the majority of it is just you showing who your authentic self is. And then the people see it and the providers around you see it. And, as a woman, people also want that for themselves. So if you show up that way, you show that it's possible, right? And we demystify the process of self care and authenticity.
I love that. It's kind of like
Mhm.
that when Harry met Sally, I'll have what she's having. Yeah.
That's right. It's true.
It is true. It is really
Yes.
true, and to your point, I did the same thing. Like, I came out of a marketing and public relations world when
Mhm.
I made the transition, and, I started in the job market right out of graduate school when the market crashed in '08. So you took what you could take because, you needed
Mhm.
to live, minor detail,
Mm,
and I knew that there was something calling me at
mm,
that time. I didn't have a clear sense of what exactly yet. I just knew that I was working the job until I figured it out.
mhm,
And, but came with those skills. And at the very beginning, I started creating my practice with the best practices that I knew from working in a corporate environment,
mm,
right?
mhm.
And it works to a point.
Yeah.
It works
Mhm,
to a point, but then
mhm,
I started looking at my business through the lens of feminine energy.
mhm.
And I'm like, my vibe really does attract my tribe.
Yeah.
And I started manifesting with the moon and
Mm, yeah.
presenting myself just as I truly was, which was the practitioner that I couldn't find.
Mhm.
And the more that I was really truthful about struggles going on in my life. Like, I was really
Mm,
quiet for many years in the early part of my practice about my recurrent loss journey.
mm,
And I had somebody who had like seen me on Instagram that had said something to the effect of, you talk a good game about fertility and whatnot, but, where's your proof that it all works? And that
mhm.
really
Yep.
was painful. And it's like, I understand that it hasn't made manifest for me, but it doesn't mean that this work doesn't work. It
Mm,
means that there is a spiritual divine timing aspect that I am not in control of.
amen.
And I have to just have faith in that part and
Mhm,
keep doing what I was meant to do because I have no doubt in my soul, in the fabric of
mhm,
my body, that I am doing exactly what I was put on this earth to do. And it's so fulfilling to work in this way and to be
mhm,
serving that higher purpose and working in alignment with that calling.
mm,
And yet, when I don't honor
mm,
boundaries and my body and the limits of my body, I can't show up the way that I want to. And
mhm,
so I made changes in my schedule and
yeah,
I made changes in the way that I move through the world and all of those kinds of things. And I'm like,
mhm,
okay, now I feel like the way that I'm working and the kind of work that I'm doing are now working with one another in the
mhm.
flow.
Yep,
And it didn't look like your standard 9 to 5.
that's right,
It
that's right.
didn't look like your typical marketing algorithm and your funnel and all that other stuff.
Mhm, mhm,
I just kept showing up in my most authentic way.
yeah, and
And
pivoting, right? Pivoting when you need to of like, "Okay, that served me at this point, but now I'm
right.
able to and I have the courage to change again." Because the more that we do that, the more we know that we can,
Yeah.
and it will only become more clear as we go through our lifetime. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And it's being able to make that hard choice
Mm,
because it was hard.
it is hard.
It is. Yes.
Hard
Present
and
tense.
scary. Hard and scary, yeah, it continues to be hard and scary, right? Because, like we talked about with the last episode, like, autopilot does has its pros, right? You get your paycheck and your 401k and all that, but the price is very high. But it does take a lot to jump off of that into the realm of just making the magic happen yourself and showing up authentically, even paving a path that hasn't been there before. It's a lot, but it's so, so worth it. And then once you do that, you know you can do anything.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, and you know that you're being held and
Mhm,
supported.
mhm. Yes.
And
Yeah.
that trust fall is hard.
Good visual.
I've
Got
been
me? Okay.
dropped.
Yeah.
I
That
had
happens
trust
sometimes
issues.
too, but usually we get back up. Okay.
Been there too.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, what kinds of small daily things besides making sure that you eat lunch
Mhm.
are you doing to make sure that you are held and supported and well resourced as a healer?
Yeah. Well, I'll show you. So I have my grounding tuning forks, the CNG grounding tuning forks that I do, first thing when I get here in the morning and when I leave to be into my body. I don't do it every day, but I try to have an energetic practice every morning where I'm visualizing my energy centers opening and gathering energy from the earth and just getting myself grounded in my body before I start. Washing hands in between patients have been helpful as a ritual for me in terms of leaving energy behind. And yeah, food choices for sure. I also have a really good friend who I check in. We give each other like audio messages at least once a day, sometimes 2 times a day, in terms of encouragement and on this path that we are currently on energetically. So I have a lot of good support. My animals, well, they're also a really good reminder of being in the present. So just playing with them as much as possible when I get home.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I have a tuning fork practice too. Sometimes I use forks, sometimes I
Yeah.
use bowls, but
Hmm.
coming home to self. One thing that's been really helpful for me, and I wanted to ask Dr. Lisa what she did, and I'm throwing some of what I do out there to just give you all a place to brainstorm, like what would feel nourishing to me, what would help me come home to myself. And one really powerful thing for me, and I did it for health reasons as well as energetic reasons. I had been dealing with some issues around high cortisol, COVID, and the future of my practice because it was still in its infancy. It was a really stressful situation for me.
Mhm.
and it had started disrupting my sleep, and I started getting a cortisol belly and all of those kinds of things. And one thing that was incredibly powerful in terms of helping to write that equation was working with light and
Mm.
getting red light in the morning and not having coffee before I had been awake for 2 hours
Mm.
and slowly integrating myself into my day. It
Mm.
was incredibly powerful for me. And then, going for my walk at lunchtime, so I'm getting the blue light
Mhm.
spectrum, and then making sure that I'm either outside or going for a walk with my husband after dinner so that I get that dusk red light spectrum again, and it totally made a huge difference in my sleep. But part of my morning wake up is I would open the curtains and I would sit cross-legged on my bed
Mhm.
and I would meditate, or
Mm.
I would do something as simple as put my hands over my heart and just ask my body, "What do we need today?
Mm.
How do we feel today?" And I was really surprised by what came up with that little simple practice, because sometimes it's like we feel stressed today. And
Mhm.
then, I'd kind of let my mind wander a little bit into, well, why? What is it that is causing this feeling to happen? Why do I
Mm.
feel stressed today? I feel happy and open today. Okay, so let's celebrate that. Why do I feel this way? Right? Because our world is so busy, little moments like that for those embodied experiences where you just take a few minutes and just really check in with
Mhm.
how is my body showing up to start the day.
Mm.
I found as a highly sensitive person that it helped me so much
Mhm.
realize that this is my baseline for the day. This is where I'm starting. So
Mhm.
that if I had a teenager come barreling out of their bedroom, I didn't take it personally because I
Mhm.
realized that was theirs and it wasn't mine. Whereas before,
Mhm.
I had a really
Mm.
hard time with that level of discernment, and that extended
Mhm.
to my clients. I had a hard time determining, like, are they bringing in their own story from the street, or are they unhappy with the container in some way?
Mhm.
So, allowing yourself to really ground and check in with, how am I doing today? Like, sometimes we don't have people in our lives that
My
even ask
gosh,
us that,
it's true. And we don't necessarily answer it honestly, right? "How are you?" "I'm okay." Lie.
right? I'm great. How are you? When, like, you're dying inside, like, right?
So
Well,
start with yourself. I love that. And like treating you as almost like a little child, right? Like, how are you doing today?
and speaking of that little child, what would make
Mm.
you happy today,
Right, right.
right?
What is
Like,
it when you need?
and sometimes that looks like dancing in my bedroom in the morning.
I love it.
And sometimes that means that I take a nap at lunchtime. And
Yeah.
sometimes that means, you know what I mean? So, like, what
Mm.
does
I'm
my
gonna
inner
add
little
that.
girl
I'm
need?
gonna add that to my morning ritual. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And it's
Because
so easy, right?
it
So how
is.
long does it take you? 5 minutes to do that? Not
Yeah.
even probably.
Oh, well, I've gotten like deliciously luxurious around the
Oh
whole
well,
thing,
good.
and I just extend that as long as I possibly can. Well, because, like, it's the only moments that I'm gonna have for me in the whole day.
Okay, I love that.
And I know that if I don't start that way, that, and like my exercise time is first thing in the morning, like I
Mm.
give myself that time for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much I needed it.
Mm.
And then to your point about having somebody that sends you audio messages and checks in with you during the day, how you're feeling and everything, like
Mhm.
through this whole journey, have become really blessed to have some of the dearest
Mm.
souls surrounding me.
Mhm.
And coming back to my blessing way, that ceremony, like
Mhm.
really, I was touched to the core of my being at how I show up in the lives of these women, and I felt so loved and so held and
Mhm.
so seen and supported in a way that I have an amazing partner and he is so supportive. And to then have not only that in my marriage, but then to have that in the community that I
Mhm.
surround myself with. Like, I was moved to tears by how beautiful it is to have that kind of a community. We used to have that.
And we need to get back to that. That is where the healing and the power is, in that community circle. The true sisterhood, which I had just started learning about around the time of COVID. It's like, this is all, and it should be part of our daily life, really, you know? So,
It really should, and it has transformed my life in ways that I could never have
mm,
imagined.
mhm,
And I have a small community, but they
yep,
are mighty, man, and
right, right.
I am so grateful for every single one of
Mm,
them, and walking away from that ceremony honoring this rite of passage in my
mhm,
life, you know,
mhm.
they're all going to be energetically tethered during my birth. Like, how beautiful is that?
So beautiful. And the raising of Enzo, right? Like,
Yes.
I hope that's a known name.
Yes. My son's name is Enzo.
Did I just take that out of the bag?
No, no, totally fine.
Okay. Oh,
It
true. When they say it takes a village, it really does. And to know that that support is always around you and that you are there for them is such a beautiful, beautiful thing.
absolutely.
Mhm,
Absolutely. So little things, I guess
mhm,
that is probably the moral of the story is that, your needs are totally normal and totally okay. And there's no shame around having needs
mhm,
that need to energetically and physically be fulfilled.
mhm. Yes.
We cannot pour from an empty cup. I say this to my clients all the time. And then I have moments where I go, Adrian, you cannot
Empty.
pour from an empty cup.
Hmm.
Perfectly imperfect, guys.
Well, we do our best. It's like you said, you just have to be mindful of those things and recognize when it's happening. It's like, "Oh, okay, here we are again."
Well, and that's it. That is a
Mhm.
beautiful point. It's getting to a point where you can actually recognize that you're headed in that direction and you need support.
Yep.
It's harder when you're so overly stressed that you're like, "Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm fine." And like you don't even have the ability to register that you've literally been eating stress for breakfast
Yeah.
and lunch and dinner and all of those things and like you've kind of
Yeah.
numbed yourself out to the
Totally.
fact that you're maxed out. And it's
Mhm.
so common. I see it with my clients all the time and I'm sure you do too.
Oh, for sure.
So, being
Mhm.
able to identify, oof, I'm feeling
Mhm.
a little overwhelmed right now. Okay,
Mhm.
body, what is it that we need in order to support us right now?
Exactly. And have it be okay to say no to more projects and to let that guilt go. And yeah, like you said, take the shame away. I love that.
Oof, and it's a work in progress. It will
It is
not happen overnight.
true. And like you said, it comes back again. And then you recognize it. And you're like, oh, wait, okay. I know where that is. I know where to put that.
Absolutely. All the
Yeah.
unlearning and all the
Uh-huh.
deprogramming, but it's totally worth it.
Worth it. And it's doable. It is,
Mhm.
people feel like as busy as it is in the world right now, as especially like you said, with busy families, it doesn't seem like it's feasible, but you can do these little shifts to change the energy for sure.
Oh gosh, yes. And the
Hmm.
little shifts add up.
Hmm. Yep.
And then you become more like a willow tree, right?
Oh,
Where your strength and your resilience is there, but you're able to be more flexible in your nervous system and your experience with life and all these things. And like, I have this visual of like waving and swaying back and forth, right? Like, you can take some pretty crazy storms
yeah.
when you are supported and nourished. And nourishment can be
Yeah.
more than just food, it can be energetic, it can be sleep, it can be all kinds of things. When
Yeah.
you're nourished well enough that you have that resilience and
Yeah.
strength.
And rooted, right? That's the other thing with willows. And it's funny, I've been bringing that up with quite a few patients recently. It's like those strong and extending roots that you don't even know are there will hold you during the hardest storms. And the willow is such a beautiful tree. And I
Mhm.
think it's a perfect symbol of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. I love willow trees. My grandmother had a large one at the house when I was growing up, and I
Mhm.
always admired the resilience of that tree. Like, we would have crazy storms, ice storms,
Mhm.
because I'm from the
Mhm.
New England area,
Yep.
and, it would break branches and break trees of all other kinds, even the ones when you
Mhm.
thought, "Oh, that's an oak tree, like, that's really strong,"
Yeah.
And here's my grandma's willow, like, "Nope, we're good,
Going
we're
strong.
just gonna keep going,"
Yeah, we're
and
gonna go with the flow. Yep.
absolutely. So, when we can get ourselves mentally, emotionally, and
Mm.
spiritually into a place like that where we are deeply grounded and rooted, we are helping to replenish our cup. And sometimes it just feels like a little tiny bit every day,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it does add up because, like, those sleep issues and the cortisol stuff I was talking about, like, completely remedied itself without a massive amount of intervention, just
Mhm.
really coming back home
Yeah.
to myself.
Mm.
And what is it that I need today? What is it that she is asking for? And honoring that and getting less self conscious about advocating for it,
Right.
because that was so hard for so long. Because I would feel
Yes.
guilty. We come back to that guilt and shame, right?
I
I would
know.
feel guilty saying, "Oh, I need to nap right now. I need to rest right now." Like,
I know. But in other cultures, it's like built into their system, right? Like if we were
right?
in Italy, we would be taking a 2-hour nap every day, but it's in this particular country that it's so detached, right? So going back to that, that it's okay and that it doesn't define us.
Yeah. And if anything, it enhances what we're capable of doing.
Yes. 100%.
So, if
Mm,
you were to leave our audience with any final thoughts
mm,
around healing the healer and that stigma around putting yourself first, putting your own
mhm,
oxygen mask on first before putting it
mhm,
on others, what would you say?
mhm. Just that I wish I learned this sooner. I just hope that all the people who are watching just recognize how our own lives are so important in this world, that we matter, and just to love ourselves because really love is all that matters. So
I
here we
love
are
that.
now. Yeah.
It's something I wish I had learned earlier too. I was
Mhm.
so sick in my 20s trying to run that race. And in my 30s, I was like, hold on a second. There
Oh,
has to be a better way to do this.
yeah. And some people never learn it. Like, I say, oh, I wish I learned it earlier, but I'm also proud that I know it now,
Mhm.
but for all those people who are out there watching, just to take that moment and say to themselves, like, what is it that I want? That's what I want to leave everybody today, is just to ask themselves that.
And there's no shame in
And
the
there's no,
authentic answer that comes up for you.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, like I said, I could talk to you for
I know.
hours.
More. It's so nice, though. It's so nice to have this as a sounding board. And thank you for offering this and just doing what you're doing because it's so important. And
Awesome. Well,
I
thank
see
you.
you.
And I see you. And
Yes.
I honor the work that you're doing, both
Mm,
for yourself as well as for others. And I'm so happy to be on this journey with you.
mm, me too.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lisa, for coming on
Thank
the show
you.
today. We'll make sure that all of Dr. Lisa's contact information is in the show notes, and we will see you next time. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.